Hello and welcome back to episode 266 of the Journey Through Games, playing almost every Super Nintendo game released in Europe and the US, missing out mostly the sports games, and today we are most definitely not playing a sports game. Probably one of the most highly regarded games on the Super Nintendo, The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past. I did play this back in the day. Probably not. I probably played it in 1997 or 1998, sometime around then. I borrowed it off a friend of mine. Again, because maybe I was a bit slow as a child, I didn't quite understand it. Like, it's hard to explain, but I guess it was probably one of the first adventure games I ever played on console. Probably I didn't quite get it. So I played it for a little bit, maybe, I don't know, a couple of hours or an hour or so, and then ended up giving it back to my friend. But I did, probably a couple of years later, 1998, I think it would have been. No, so 99, I think. I did play Ocarina of Time on the N64. And I did get into that. I did understand that. And yeah, it became one of my favourite games of all time. One of my most favourite games of all time. I'm a prisoner in the... And I also think that the introduction in this game is really good. So I should say that I have played it since the 90s, the mid to late 90s when I first played it. I think I was at secondary school, and so I was the class of 98 to 2003. So maybe I played it in 1998, probably, and then I played Ocarina of Time in 1999, I think, because I got Majora's Mask the Christmas that it was released on the N64. So I think there was Ocarina of Time came out in 98, I think, in the UK. Anyway, I could always check this stuff on the internet if I cared that much. But anyway, we're talking about A Link to the Past. So I've played it since. I gave it a really good effort probably a couple of years ago to try and finish it, but I didn't. For whatever reason, I got quite far in. So I was in the Dark World. I probably did between 3 and 5 of the temples in the Dark World, and then it just fizzled for me. I for whatever reason, I just wasn't that enthused by it enough to keep playing. I think it's also quite tough. From what I remember, it's quite a difficult game. When I say difficult, I mean it's not like Dark Souls or anything like that, but yeah, I remember some of the boss battles being quite tough, and perhaps also as well, if I'd rushed through things, I hadn't spent time accumulating all the extra hearts. That puts you at a bit of a disadvantage. I wonder if you can throw these at these guys. No. But anyway, maybe I'm just making excuses. Either way, I got quite far into it. Maybe I had 2 more dungeons to go, something like that. Not including the final boss. And yeah, I wasn't into it. But I think part of the issue is, oh look, there are hearts there on the bridge. I didn't just notice that. Is playing it in 2000s. It's a game from the 90s, so it is going to have a game from a different era, and also there's lots of competition nowadays, or for your time. So while I was playing it, and if I wasn't 100% into it, I usually move on and play something else if I feel like I've given something enough of a try. But having said all of that, I do acknowledge it as it is a good game, and I'm not quite sure. We could have find ourselves playing this for quite a while, but we'll see. Save the princess. Yep. So I think as well, there are some enemy. Yeah, the combat, like, yeah, it just feels a bit, you know, like it's very easy to kind of misjudge things, and you miss the enemy, and then the enemy hits you. No, you can't. That's interesting. You can't break pots. Is it Y? Yeah, it is. Yeah. So, and the other thing as well is, I think it does get very repetitive, because once you've done the first, I don't know, once you've got to the Dark World and done a few of the Dark World dungeons, it is very much rinse and repeat. And I think as well, for me, it doesn't really have nostalgia, because, like I said, I played it in the 90s some point. Probably, yeah, just before the N64 came out. Well, I think what happened was my friend had an N64, and that's why he let me borrow Link to the Past. So yeah, that would probably make sense around about 98. So yeah, the other thing, yeah. So once you've done a few of the dungeons, it is very much rinse and repeat, which I think you can say about all the Zelda games, which is why they needed to refresh the design, I think, for Breath of the Wild, because it was becoming quite obvious that the same design philosophy had been in play since this game, which I think was 94, something like that, 94, 93. Or maybe it was earlier than that. So yeah, that's a bit of a ramble about my thoughts on The Legend of Zelda, both Link to the Past, yeah, and Ocarina of Time, which Ocarina of Time is my favourite game of all time. One of. The thing about it is, though, you can't play it for the first time ever again. So that first experience with it was, I mean, it's cliche to say, but it was like going on an actual adventure, because everything was new, the mechanics were new, the graphics were beyond, well, if you compare the graphics of Ocarina of Time to this, it is a leap that we probably won't ever see again, in terms of going from 2D sprite work to 3D polygonal graphics. Was a huge leap. So yeah, oh dear. You see what I mean about getting these cheeky little hits? Maybe I just never quite understood the mechanics of how you're supposed to fight these guys. But I always, yeah, the shield feels a little bit pointless in that. I wonder if you can. No, you can't raise it. I don't know if you can. Yeah, like every now and then it will block one arrow or something on the shield, but overall the shield itself is not very useful. And there are some enemies that they're kind of like the Medusa heads in Castlevania, not in terms of how they look, but their movement is so erratic, well, not erratic, but so difficult to kind of deal with, that I remember in one of the later dungeons they just got really annoying, and I thought, sod this. So yeah, but like I said, I've said this before, yeah, already. I acknowledge that it's a good game. It's a great game, in fact. But it's just, that doesn't mean I want to play it all the time. Or I think as well, it can very much be a product of its time. In the 90s, this would have been about as good as console gaming got. But things have moved on. See, as well, with me, when I'm going through this, so I don't know this game as well as I know Ocarina of Time, but I know where I'm going, what the end point's going to be, which takes away from that sense of adventure that I think the Zelda games they, at their best, that's what they do better than anything else. Having said that, I've just wasted time by going all the way around there. And I always used to think that these statues were goblins, but they're not. Which doesn't make sense in Hyrule Castle. But they are knights, aren't they? Knight statues. They look a bit like goblins to me. Yeah, so I guess it teaches you various things like that. Sometimes you have to defeat all of the enemies in a room in order to open the... Oh, the boomerang. Let's equip that. But in terms of design, it's very good. This is obviously the cheesy way of beating him. Like Mike Tyson, go in behind your going behind the boomerang. Thank you, Jutka. I had a feeling you were getting close. Listen carefully. The wizard is magically controlling all the soldiers in the castle. I fear the worst for my father. Oh, there's Zelda's lullaby. The wizard is an inhuman fiend with strong magical powers. Yes. Alright, let's get out of here before the wizard notices. I know a secret path, but first we have to get to the first floor. Let's go! Right, let's go. Let's go then. Oh, right. No. Yeah, so already I like this game, but I could definitely not see myself playing it all the way through. It would, I don't know, for whatever reason I would just get bored. Part of that is because I've played a lot of it before. I'd say probably a good 80%, 90% maybe of it before. Wait, hold on. Are we on the first floor? No. See, that boomerang is good. They get stunned for a lot longer than I remember. Yeah, you saw it a little bit there. That the kind of the judging of when your sword attacks will land and when he recovered a lot faster. I remember them recovering quite fast. So where are we going then, Zelda? Has he not seen me? There is a secret passage in the throne room that leads to the sanctuary. I'm sure the old man there will help us. Okay. How do we get to the throne room? Okay, up here. That ornamental shelf should open. Do you have a light? It's pitch dark inside and you can't see with that one. Let's go, help me push it from the left. Ooh, I love secret passages. Cool AF. Oh, you can save it anywhere. I think we'll get to the sanctuary and then, yeah, crack on with something else. Yeah, I think that the Z targeting from Ocarina of Time really helped the combat. Obviously the fact it was in 3 dimensions as well was a big boost. Oh. Let's light that up, see what happens. I think, yeah, part of the issue as well is the Zelda games, there's such a common vocabulary. The vocabulary between them is so common about using or some form of light source to light candles, which in turn opens keys. The structure of the dungeons, where they're sort of individual puzzle rooms that all sort of connect together but aren't really they don't really connect together in the sense that they do in Breath of the Wild, for example, where you do something that will impact the whole of the dungeon. The puzzles in a lot of Zelda games are all kind of like individual puzzle rooms, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but I think once you've played 1, 2, 3 or 4 of them, the formula becomes clear. So I think it's probably quite a common thing to people have said before, but the first one you play is probably the one that you're most attached to, and I think that's true for me. Ocarina of Time is very good. I don't think I've played even Breath of the Wild, which was very different. For a while, Majora's Mask is probably also up there as being one of my favourite games. Would I say I go back and forth as to whether or not Majora's Mask or Ocarina of Time are my favourites. I would say at the moment it's probably Ocarina of Time, just on the basis that, can you open this one again? Just on the nostalgia factor. Like, I've played Majora's Mask recently on the 3DS, and I think that is the definitive version of that game, in my personal opinion. Just the way it looks is so much better than what it does on the N64. It sort of, for me, supersedes any other minor problems that the game might have. But again, I played it and I just kind of lost interest at Great Bay Temple. So I'd done the Woodfall Temple, and I think I did another temple as well. Oh yeah, Snowhead. And then Great Bay, I just lost interest. No, I didn't even get into Great Bay Temple. It was all the stuff beforehand. It's just, I guess, for me that it's so familiar, both that game, because I've played it once before already, but also the stuff that it has you doing in order to access the temple. It's all cut from the same cloth. Meet the elder of the village and get the master sword. So yeah, well I think that's going to do it for A Link to the Past. It's a good game. In my opinion, I would say it's not it's not my favourite Zelda game, but it's still good. And I just think, yeah, for whatever reason, I get bored before I finish it. I think maybe it might be a bit too long for the ideas that it has in there. But also perhaps because, yeah, you're playing it, it doesn't, 20, nearly 30 years after it was first released. In fact, no, it will be coming up for its 30th anniversary next year, I think. Yeah, if it was released in 94. Yeah, so perhaps some of that initial wow factor that it had, if you hadn't played anything like it before, is gone now in 2024, because it's been widely emulated, and it just doesn't have that. When you look at it, it's like a Super Nintendo game. And in the modern day, we have games which are far more graphically far more graphically what's the word? Oh dear, I'm going to die here. Well, that's a place to end it. That just goes to show that sort of thing kept happening to me last time I played it, and I got bored of it. So yeah, that is it for A Link to the Past in episode 266, and I will see you guys next time.